Danny Hayes, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, George. Good to be with you.
We want to talk a bit about how we read the laws of the Old Testament. When we talk about reading the Bible well, we want to be tuned in to the original context in which texts were given, but our own context also influences the way that we read the Bible. I remember a story you've shared in the past about your experience as a missionary in Ethiopia that had to do with a Christmas pageant, which I think illustrates that pretty well. Would you mind sharing that with us?
George, this was a real eye-opener for me along those same lines. We had arrived in Ethiopia and had just moved down country. So we'd been, down country for a few months. Christmas rolled around. And the church was having a big Christmas pageant, invited us to come down to the Christmas pageant. So we were excited, we went down. But of course, we're anticipating a certain Christmas pageant. Here in the U.S., they're pretty stereotypical. We have the same pretty much story and it's told about the same way. And I assumed, well, that's the way the Bible is. That's the only way you can do it.
So you have Mary and Joseph coming down the aisle and the baby Jesus and the manger.
Absolutely. And the three kings come and the shepherds. And we choreograph it, the same way all the time. So I'm expecting that just with the Ethiopians acting it out. So when we got there, of course, I was surprised to see that they're reading the story a little bit differently. The same story, and yet they're portraying it different. One of the big things, for instance, at the beginning, we show Joseph and Mary on their trip. They're traveling to Nazareth. And
traveling to Bethlehem.
I mean, to Bethlehem, Nazareth. From Nazareth to Bethlehem. You New Testament guys, keep me straight on this, okay? And they're on their way to Bethlehem. And then it's just them, the two of them, of course. And for Americans, that makes good sense. We have a very nuclear family portrayal. That's the way babies are delivered. The husband takes the wife to the hospital, the baby's delivered. Now, to the Ethiopians, this is unthinkable, that they would send a young girl pregnant with her first baby off on a trip by herself. And so they have the story, all of her aunts and cousins go with her. So on the travel and the trip, here's Joseph walking by himself in the front, and then there's this large group of about 15 women yakking and talking.
So this is their pageant.
This is the pageant, Christmas pageant. This is on the way to Bethlehem. There's this whole group of women, that come by. And then, of course, when it's time for the baby to be born, they have all these midwives included, Mary's relatives, her aunt and whatever. They're the ones delivering the baby. We never talk about who delivers the baby. I mean, we saw them, again, that's the way we do it in our culture. The husband checks the wife into the hospital and presto, the baby, shows up. Yeah. Nobody says, did Joseph deliver that, the baby, which is to them unthinkable that a young guy who just got married is somehow going to know how to deliver a baby.
And really would have been unthinkable in Palestinian culture of the first century.
They're a lot closer. I mean, that was my realization watching it. First I thought, well, they got the story wrong. Don't they know, how it happened? Then I got to thinking, and then I went back and reread it, and I thought, really what you do is you start filling in gaps with your own culture if you're not careful. I mean, that's the normal reaction to what we'll do with the story. The Ethiopians, being a little closer in lots of areas culturally, probably were filling in those gaps better than we were with a little more modern look at things.
Probably in Bethlehem of the first century, you would have had members of the extended family gathered around them, actually helping her give birth and then celebrating the birth.
Yes, and even though the gospel narratives don't mention them, I think it's almost implied to those people from that culture would say, well, for sure, at least the midwives, her aunts, and whatever would have been there with her.
And in the Ethiopian pageant, they also celebrated when the baby was born.
Oh, sure. They have a little high-pitched joy cry that's, I can't do it, okay, but it's this real high-pitched la 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 la, and they do it all over Ethiopia in times of celebration, and the birth of a new baby is a special one when they would have this joy cry. So in the pageant, of course, when the baby Jesus is born, then Mary's relatives all break out, these girls, in this high joy cry. And of course, the audience immediately joins in. All the women in the audience join in, and so everybody's singing this high celebration. And so, again, it's one of those, it's a powerful moment to see them with that kind of cry of celebration from within their culture.
So the point is, when we read the Bible, we all read it from our cultural standpoint, our perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we do it subconsciously is the problem. that it's a subconscious reading. We think that for sure that's the way it was. And I think part of serious Bible study for us is to realize, not only what is going on in their culture to try and understand, but to realize what are the things we're bringing with us from our culture, our kind of culture-colored glasses that make us read it as if it was a story that took place in America today, which it wasn't.
When you say that about the glasses, I remember a few years ago, your colleague Scott Duvall and I were rooming together at this meeting, this professional meeting, and one morning I got up very early for a very early meeting in the dark and put on my glasses that were sitting on the nightstand, and then went and got ready and went out into the hall, and things were blurry. And as I walked down the hall, I suddenly had visions of having brain tumor or something, because my vision was altered until I came to the elevator doors, which had glass, a glass mirror on them. And I looked, and Scott and I had glasses that were the same shape but a different color. So I had actually taken Scott's glasses and put them on, and it changed the way that I saw everything. So you're saying that we can put on culture conditioned glasses that really affect what we see in the scriptures.
And sometimes can skew it. I mean, sometimes our culture will shape things to, how would we be seeing this if it happened now? And I think it's helpful for us to try and get it into their culture and see what did it mean for them first, and get a good grasp of what it meant for them. And then as far as we can't completely get out of our own culture, but as far as we can, at least identify the cultural things that we're bringing into the story as we read it.